Yo, what's good, Adam?
Can you hear me okay now, or am
I can. I think that was earlier. So we were having some technical difficulties in the waiting room. I think it was StreamYard this time, because once I started playing the music, it was all staticky. And then once I closed it out, it was gone.
Once I went on to, the Twitter space, it was messed up too. Chris's mic couldn't turn off and stuff. So there's technical issues. Maybe we're under attack right now. Maybe this is, attacking our network systems, man, right now. I don't know. Chris, what's up, dude?
Yeah, my mic is still not really muted, so it might be a little noisy, but doing my best to keep it down up here. But what's up, everyone? Let's have a good morning.
It's all good. Did you just get a new mic?
No, nothing changed as usual.
Literally can't make this stuff up, dude. I'm telling you, man. Like the TON network goes down yesterday, and it's like, this is what they're setting us all up for, right? This is what my conspiracy friends tell us. Like, it's like the big cyber attack. That's what brings in the CBDCs and all the rest of it. So head on a swivel, guys. Don't.
Hell yeah. Well, good. I invited you. I sent you an invite. I don't know if he's on stage. It's not showing me he's on stage. Or am I drugged?
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. All right. Yeah, it's showing me listening. It's showing me listener.
We got technical problems everywhere today, bro. Lean in.
All right, man. Dude, I think it's Gary Gensler just
fucking I'm on stage. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's Gary's coming after us, my friend. Well, I'm excited to have this conversation. Good. It's actually been maybe like a year since I had you on my podcast.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Quite some time ago. Dude, how have you been, my friend? I know you took a little break from the industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty hectic. I think all of you know kind of how like the crypto space works. You give your all for a couple months, and then chances are you end up tired, before even sometimes launching something or even getting to the goal. But I feel like I've had time to, get the energy back, and a lot of things have happened since, last year, notably like the entire runes meta. But I think we'll talk about it more, but I'm just happy to be here. So that's it.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to have you. I know you've been in the space for a while, and when you were doing your few projects beforehand, you definitely seemed like you knew what you were doing here. And then I went and kept seeing this thing called BetBTC popping up. It's like, what is this? Prediction markets. I mean, that's kind of one of the winning apps this cycle, meme coins and prediction markets. And then somehow I looked and it linked everything to you. And I was like, oh, Good is doing this. And then I saw there's a cross-chain component with it, with ICP involved as well. So I'd love to kind of dive into it. But first and foremost, let's just kind of start from the top and maybe give, a little refresh about, a little bit of your background in the space and what led you to going on this prediction market on BTC Adventure.
Sure, 100%. So regarding my experience in the crypto space, so I've been in the crypto space for a while, right? So I've been here end of 2016, beginning 2017, and I've witnessed, lots of projects come and go, but mostly I was focused on anything that was related to Ethereum, right? So I was here before, I was here when you had, new blockchains coming up, trying to solve like the trilemma. I was here a bit during the DeFi, but I missed most of it. But we still see like the effects of that era on our on the blockchain right now. I came back around like the NFT era, 2021. The NFT initially was probably something I didn't fully grasp, right? Because it was such a new concept to me. But when I had time to actually, look into it and see the enthusiasm that people had, I definitely didn't miss the wave of ordinals, right? Because to me, it felt like a renaissance period on like Bitcoin. So essentially, I stumbled upon the ordinals protocol through forums, Reddit mostly. I think I saw people talking about it before even like the exchanges came, like Unisat and Ordinals Wallet and all these other stuff. So I was early to the Ordinals phase. Started writing mostly threads, trying to educate as many people as I could on the subject. It was highly technical, but I think essentially what people are always here for is like the culture and the community, right? So I was here through the ordinal phase, most likely in experimental mode. I was trying to see what was possible. I was building teams, experimenting with different teams, trying to build my own projects. And eventually, things do get hard, or sometimes you need to pivot. And eventually, our projects have this factor that we call execution risk. And fortunately for me, that kind of happened at one point. So there was a lot of stuff happening. So I wasn't totally, let's say, out of the market. I was keeping an eye still on, what was happening. And then when I kind of came back, I noticed that I entirely missed like the entire rune stuff, right? So I came, I saw the runestone thing, didn't understand a single thing about runestone, right? But I was reading through like the Twitter, and at the same time, I think we had this entire meme coin meta on Solana, right? And my understanding was that we were trying to replicate, or at least try to have the same, kind of vibes on Bitcoin. So that was my understanding of like the runes. But then I kind of dug deeper and I was looking at, different projects that were trying to build with runes. And then that's where, it kind of, let's say, hit me that runes are another version of like the fungible tokens, right? Because we've tried it with BRC20. And with BRC20, we've seen multiple derivatives like the SRCs and other, token designations. But I think with the rune stuff, we do see a lot of people building from their experience related to last year's BRC20. So I think people are coming in more prepared. At least that's my feeling of the situation. So that was regarding the entire runes thing. Now, how did we come about the prediction market? So it was actually my co-founder, Clue is not here unfortunately today, but we were talking about things we'd be able to build on Bitcoin. The thing is, we're experimenters, so we try to experiment as much as possible and try to build innovative stuff on Bitcoin, as difficult as it is. We're always interested in doing it. And then we kind of noticed, Polymarket, right? I was familiar with Augur, which was one of the first prediction market that existed. It was on Ethereum. I was familiar with Augur. I witnessed their ICO back in the days, but it just wasn't something that I understood initially. Following that, I also was a part of a project that was called Sharp, because by trade I'm like a data scientist, and the essence of Sharp was using, I think it was predictions, like it was using formulas and code to determine, I think, crypto prices. And at that time, that kind of I was more familiar with. So I didn't really understand like the concept of prediction market. But then when I came back, I spoke to my co-founder, and then he introduced to me the idea of Polymarket. And then I went on the website, I looked through it, and I saw, huge interest on Polymarket, especially with like the politics happening this year. And then we just took on the challenge of having it on Bitcoin. Would it be able to reproduce the same thing on Bitcoin? And I think we could get into the details of it as we talk. So that's essentially how it all started.
Yeah, I mean, my first question is, as we've seen so many L2s and meta protocols spin up on Bitcoin, the first obvious question is, how's it going to be possible, right? Because part of Polymarket, the great thing about it, it's got this bonding curve, and you can get in and out literally in a second. How are you going to compete with that on Bitcoin?
Yeah, definitely. So that's where we kind of sat down with my co-founder, and eventually on the technical side, we definitely needed people who knew about Bitcoin better than us, and also about different layers too that we would be able to leverage, right? Because now we're dealing with Polymarket, which is on Polygon. There's also like Azuro that's also on Polygon, and we know that user experience is something that people value like highly, right? When you make bets or transaction, it has to be fast, cost efficient, and that's essentially where we had the discussion of maybe trying to leverage ICP. So we were aware of like I think technologies that were on Bitcoin. I think the name is like DLC contracts. There are other stuff that are more less known, but people still think it could be leveraged. But we thought we would have the advantage of using ICP because I was kind of more familiar with it. And ICP essentially allows us to do, fast transactions on our platform, low fees. So the way it essentially works is that on the Bitcoin network, there's not much we could do. So I can kind of go into how the platform works, how a user will kind of use the platform. So essentially, you would have the Bitcoin, and what ICP allows us to do is to convert those Bitcoin into their version of Bitcoin called CK Bitcoin. So it's kind of like a Bitcoin wrapper. Essentially, what happens is you have a wallet, you have Bitcoin, you would send Bitcoin to their minter address, and then you would receive the equivalent in CK BTC on a 1-to-1 ratio. And eventually, and so one thing we can control is the time and the fee that it's going to cost you to send to the minter. But once you have the CK BTC, your experience on the platform should be as flawless as possible.
Got it. So what you're leveraging here is ICP, who's recently taken a large initiative into Bitcoin. Obviously, we know many people who are in the ordinal space know who Bob Bodley is, who's kind of one of the leaders in terms of leveraging ICP's, I think they call it fusion technology, I believe.
Chain fusion, yeah.
Chain fusion technology. And then they also had a partnership recently with Track and Tap to build an interoperability bridge between Ethereum and Bitcoin and deploying smart contracts on Bitcoin. Are you using the fusion technology?
Yeah, exactly. So this is the chain fusion key. Essentially, maybe it's in our website, but Bob was actually the first person we spoke to just because of his knowledge of ICP. And essentially, we went through the process of designing the technical side of how people would be able to exchange their BTC and then use it on our platform for the prediction market. We also worked through the process of designing the bonding curves for our market. But essentially, we are using chain key, the chain key fusion tech, and this is what allows us to convert whatever you have, like your BTC. I think they have the Ethereum equivalent, and it's essentially just sending whatever you have as an asset into their minter, and you would receive the equivalent in a wrapped version.
Got it. And so then this lives on ICP, right? So technically, this would be considered a side chain.
Exactly. So we're operating using exactly. So ICP as a side chain.
Got it. Go ahead, Adam.
So one question just popped up to me is the bonding curve. And this is interesting because if you're kind of copying Polymarket's bonding curve or not, but like to get into that. But I just kind of one thing that I've learned is that when Pumped Up Fund first launched, their bonding curve was much larger. They did it like over 100K or something was required for their bonding curve to, to actually take a coin to Radium. And I wonder how you guys are looking at that. Are you going to be playing around with the bonding curve and trying to hit on something? Because they didn't really, my point is like, it didn't really hit until they adjusted their bonding curve to a number that kind of made sense for the market, if that makes sense. So like,
Yeah,
how are you thinking about building out the bonding curve?
I 100% agree. So the thing about bonding curves is with if you're dealing with meme coins, it's particularly, I wouldn't say easy, but the formula is a lot more simpler than markets, just because meme coins are extremely volatile in nature. So designing a bonding curve, it would restrict yourself to using bonding curves that are designed for like extremely volatile assets, right? With prediction markets, it's a bit more difficult just because prediction markets vary in types and also in interest, right? So some prediction markets are extremely volatile. Like you could create a prediction market on, let's say, something that happens on Twitter, for which the outcome, ranges a lot, and you could have a bonding curve for politics, which is more of a less volatile, because you would have, let's say, two choices as presidents, and then it's either one or the other, but also the outcome is a lot more deterministic. So we need actually to experiment a lot on the bonding curves. And the difficulty we'll probably have is so we're starting with almost similar bonding curve to with all markets, and then how we do it essentially is we tag the markets based on different categories, right? So you would have, for example, sports, crypto, and then we would evaluate how the bonding curves are behaving and how the users are behaving in this prediction market, and eventually we're going to be adjusting like the parameters so that it reflects the actual user base. And I definitely agree with your point. This is going to be like a work in progress, because it's going to necessitate us to always change like the parameters of our bonding curves.
The other question there, that, I've never really heard people on Polymarket, or there isn't much discussion about it, right? But it's the off-chain aspect of this, which is like, okay, well, who determines whatever the stupid ones I hear that Trump said, crypto in his last talk, right? In his interview with Elon, who does, I mean, you would think it's simple. Oh, it's simple, but it's not always simple, right? And there are, did he say crypto? I thought he said crypta, right? I mean, it's like that sort of off-chain aspect where like you as a team have to make this call or something. How do you look at that? Because it seems like a huge risk to me.
It is. You guys are actually asking like the most difficult question. Like these are the important questions we're trying to determine. So what happens with prediction markets? So prediction markets usually have what we call like oracles. So they're truth sources, right? So what usually before creating a market, we give out like what's the title of the market? We give out the different options. We give out when does the market close, and finally what we do is we determine how do we validate the information. So usually there are I think like I said, there's oracle sources. They're the ones that what they do essentially is that they fetch like through the internet, and they provide us with what they think would be the truth for this market. And essentially, it does happen that the market does not resolve properly, and in which case the users or participant of that market can open disputes, right? So most of the time, we do have to rely on these oracle sources as much as possible. I think that's also the way Polymarket functions. I'm not sure of which oracle like source truth they're using, but it comes down to looking at what information is available through those oracle sources that are looking through the internet for the information, and then relying on that. So there's definitely a risk in that.
Yeah, the oracle problem is something that's been an issue for quite a long time, and there's really no one way to go about it, because what an oracle basically is it's what feeds data from outside of the blockchain into the blockchain. Sometimes this is generally in the form of an API, but can also be transmitted in different ways. And so the resolving of these different types of lines come with different variables to it, depending on the way that something is enunciated in a word, to if a game ends in a tie, or there's all kinds, right? It's basically like, where's the truth centered from. On the other side of this, just speaking about different types of prediction market lines that you can open up, do you see any difference in terms of users who are opening up a line on Polymarket, which is on ETH, versus somebody who's opening up a prediction market line on BetBTC, who's using Bitcoin, right? A kind of a bridged version or wrapped version. Do you think that it's just going to end up being the same lines, or are you trying to build this to be something of a different experience, where you can find different types of markets that are open that maybe do not exist on Polymarket because of it's a different culture?
100%. So that's also a very good question. So what we like to do is, essentially, we started with the concept of Polymarket because initially I think it's the easier way to to find product market fit, just because we've seen, like, we've gauged the interest, people understand what it is, and it's kind of easier to implement because we have a model in front of us, right? But eventually, the way we want to approach this is, we want to go through something more broad, right? So the first thing we're tackling here is, there are markets on Polymarket, but we're trying to broaden the types of market that people would be able to bet on, right? So we notice that there's a focus on, Western hemisphere of the world in terms of like markets, maybe like more Western politics, Western sports, and now we're opening up to more of the South and the East. So you would see more exotic markets, right? And also we're broadening the definition of what it means to be a prediction market. So here in this case, we're eventually it's in the roadmap, but we're allowing people to be able to create their own prediction market. So here, essentially, you would be able to create the type of market you feel you would need, your community would need, or the people within the space would need, right? And it's in the roadmap. It's going to be difficult because we just talked about it, like the Oracle source, right? We want to make sure that if you create a market, we'll still be able to validate like the information, and people would be able to bet on it without getting bugged. So that's one of the avenues we're taking. But broader than that, so we have the website, and this is essentially how we coined the term is trade your niche, right? We want to be able also to allow people to trade on more niche things, right? One of the examples that we did with this recently on Twitter was, I believe, you had a bet between Martin and GCR. I think they were betting. I kind of forget what they were betting on, but I think they had a bet on Twitter, and it would have been nice to turn that into an actual bet on a platform through that Twitter tweet, or kind of Twitter challenge. So we're kind of focused on people being able to trade within their niche, and I think there's going to be high value in that, because we've seen a similar model with like the meme coins, right? People are creating their own meme coins because they feel more attached to it, and they feel like people of a certain community would be able to feel attached to that meme coin. Essentially, the same concept, we believe, could be applied to like prediction market. You guys have a particular event between your friends or between a certain crypto community, then just create a market with it and trade within that niche.
It's interesting, the options that are out there, and obviously the big ones like sports. I think when we was talking with Jake about it, like, why isn't somebody doing kind of a betting market for online gaming? So when there's whatever, a Fortnite game going on, why can't you bet on people? Which I think could be interesting too. But all of these, right? It's like, how do you get the attention to do it? One of the things that kind of just occurred to me, it's like that you could get traction within the native crypto community is this kind of like NFT versus NFT community. So in the past, we would have, like, I don't know, it's Milady's Are Milady's going to pass Bored Ape Yacht Club, right? What are the odds that that happens? And people right now, they don't make bets on it, but it's this thing, this competitive environment, PvP environment of NFTs, right? How do you think when you're going after like a market, how do you determine, okay, this is a big enough segment where, this is going to move the needle for us, where we're going to get enough traction? Like what I might have just described to you, you may look at it and go, well, that's only $500,000 of betting a month. That's not going to work, right? How do you look at that and try to get something that makes sense for you business wise?
Sure. So I think the first step is what we usually do. For example, in the example you just gave, is we do like an eye test, right? So usually I think people on Twitter have very interesting markets, and people like our audience. I like to say that our audience is general, but I think a lot of the value here would be brought to like the crypto community, especially people that are always like on Telegram, because we do have eventually we do have like a Telegram app version for this. So what we do is we do an eye test. We kind of evaluate what people are talking about, what are the trending topics, what are the top communities, and essentially we try to leverage key members of these communities, and we say, you know what, it would be a good idea. For example, we think there's value in you creating maybe a prediction market for your community, because let's say Miladies and let's say Bored Apes, I think you guys have some sort of rivalry. It would be interesting for your communities to come together, make a bet, and then put your put your money where your mouth is. So I think there's a lot of these instances that can be leveraged within the crypto, because it's most. I think there's a lot of ego-driven bets, a lot of ego-driven people within the space, and I think it's something that could be interesting. And I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of instances in use cases within the crypto space for that. So if in terms of product market fit, I think it's just about reaching out to like maybe communities, or looking at what's been trending, or what people are actually want to bet on, and create markets for this, or bring people to create their own market for that. And I've also seen I haven't talked about this yet, but we do have, I mentioned earlier, we do have parts of the entire platform which are called exotic markets. And essentially the idea behind the exotic markets is, one of the best examples I always take is like GCR. I don't know who's familiar with GCR, but GCR often makes predictions on Twitter, right? And what we did within the GCR market section is we compiled some of his predictions, and people could actually bet on these predictions. Let's say he said the next bull market is going to start from the east. And now what happens is that people who think that's going to happen, they could bet, yes, it's going to come from the east, and people know. So we do have these exotic markets, and we try to fit markets as much as possible to what people are actually looking for.
I like the idea of exotic markets, and more specifically crypto native markets, right? It could be prone to manipulation. So there's some things that you have to consider.
Totally. Maybe that's good though. I mean, honestly, business, it might be good. Yeah.
I mean, like, and also when you just consider, right, what is a prediction market? Like betting is a prediction market that's largely already kind of monopolized. You see like Rollbit and some of these decentralized platforms are attempting to get into it, and they're still even having trouble, really defeating the Vegas sportsbook, which is largely, an in-person kind of, betting experience, because it's just been there. It's really tough to beat the incumbents. When you look at, right, Polymarket, they've come up, and it's been a lot of their success has been largely betting on humans. Actually have on the live stream pulled up something Richard Chen put out, some analysis of Polymarket, and it says that Polymarket's growth, or Polymarket's volume since the beginning of 2024, 88% of it has been for elections. So people right now, right, you say the number one prediction market is sports, and you could say the second largest prediction market outside of investing, I suppose, is betting on politics. And then he breaks it down a little bit further and says, okay, if you remove the 88%, the remaining 12% has, within this 12%, about 10% of that is the Bitcoin ETF approval, the ETH ETF approval. Is DJT real? That was the Donald Trump token. And then the Paris Olympics. So if you remove, DJT, all of these are really, event-driven outcomes. The election is who's going to win, yes, no, right? You have the BTC and ETH ETF is, will it be approved on this date, yes or no? And then the Paris Olympics is something similar to sports. And so what you're talking about with the exotic market is kind of moving beyond those, typical traditions of betting on humans or betting on event outcomes and more betting on other people's predictions.
Yeah, 100%. So if we look at the growth of Polymarket, so Polymarket had quite like a very fast growth, but notably because they've also had like huge backing from some of the biggest, investors in the world. They've been, mentioned in media and a lot more, news outlet. And I think what I came across at one point was the current, I think, one of the stake founders. I think one of his initial I think projects was actually a prediction market before he founded Stake, right? And I think the consensus was that Polymarket growth, especially this year, I think they did like 400 million of volume just last month, right? And this is, like you said, mainly politics driven. It's all the volume, all the attention is based on one single outcome. And now the worry is always what's going to happen after the elections are done, right? What's going to happen after the Olympics are done? And now this is the problem we're actually trying to solve, because what happened to a lot of these other prediction markets in the past, let's say Augur, people were extremely interested at the beginning, but what the prediction market actually lacked, which I think personally was things that would keep at least markets, or things that would keep people engaged within these prediction market, right? So interesting events, maybe things they would be interested in betting on, people they would be interested in betting with. And so this is kind of like the problem we're trying to address, because elections are going to end this year, Olympics are going to end. So now we have to find other, sources to keep interest within our prediction platform. So this is where the exotic market and all the other stuff come along.
It seems like you could lean into, and I'm not saying it's easy, but the difficulty of finding that next thing. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in election cycles, but the timeline is literally littered every single day with, people taking stands on things that you could, it seems like there's a ripe opportunity to grab those crypto native people to put their money where their mouth is, right, on these things that they're predicting or talking about, because it literally, the timeline is just every single day full of this stuff. It would seem to me if you leaned into that, it could be interesting and you could get some traction. On the
timeline. I exactly. I think so too. So there's an opportunity almost every day in the crypto space. So that if a project launches every week, that's an opportunity for people to bet on floor price, right? If anything that happens within the space, two people are in conflict, that's an opportunity for people to make a bet. So there's fortunately for us, if the crypto, there's so much happening that we're never in lack of like markets or content. And every time I go on Twitter, look at my timeline, there's always someone who's made predictions for the rest of the year. So the source of, our source of inspiration is like limitless. So that's why I think focusing on these, niche markets is also something that could attract the people we want to predict on our market.
Yeah, I completely agree. As we have this conversation, you could kind of consider and think about where the future of this goes, where if there's an ability to open up a prediction market line underneath somebody's tweet, if they're making a bet, right, by using some sort of hashtag or something like that, that could be a nice consumer facing application there. I just tried to think of all the different gamifications about it. Have you thought about any other, unique features or innovations that you want to bring there?
We actually did. So I think earlier this year, Solana launched the Blinks feature, right? And I think for me, Blinks was something we thought within our team was kind of innovative, because it allowed, direct interaction within social platforms. So we did have it's part of the roadmap, because we think it could add another level to predictions, right? So if you create your own market, you could trade it. You could share the market on your socials, whether it's on Telegram, Discord, or Twitter. So I think their markets could be accessed by a lot more people. I think one of maybe the difficulties we've had from the conversation is mostly, people are afraid to click on links, right? What if it's like a phishing link or something like that? And so right now we're kind of like evaluating, what people are saying versus how we want to integrate it. But it's part of the roadmap. Blinks is something we found extremely cool, and then it's about hearing what people think about, having the option to click on markets or links. People are afraid to click on it, so that's one of the cool features that we'll be bringing for sure.
Yeah, it is really neat. Another idea that I had, I posted about this the other day when I saw a line open up on the odds of the debate, or the odds of if Trump or Harris will drop out. And I thought it'd be interesting if you could add something like a sub-market where if you bet on this, right? So if you put the odds of Trump or Harris dropping out and you voted for Trump, right, you can then open up a sub-market to say, or you can then open up a sub-market to see, which person will be the one that actually makes the announcement of who's dropping out, or something of this nature, to where it's almost like a doubling down type of bet here. Have
Absolutely.
you considered anything like that? Sub-markets, you could call it something like a meta market, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%. So with how we're approaching things, we don't put a limit on how many markets or sub markets we could create or people can create. As long as there's interest in that market and people are willing to bet, the market is a good to go. And of course, if there's a way for us to kind of validate and make sure that the truth source is accurate, that's 100%.
And what's the initial strategy to bootstrap liquidity onto BetBTC? As we know, it's tough already to get people to bridge. We've been seeing this issue go on for quite a long time, even if it is like a 1 or 2 click process. Are you offering any types of initial incentives, or any type of, what's the game plan?
So the game plan over here. So we've been fortunate enough the past couple of weeks. Maybe you've noticed on Twitter, but we did make some partnerships for different airdrops, and we've also made a partnership for what we call integration partners. And essentially, integration partners are like layer twos and other projects building on Bitcoin who already have a certain user base. And of course, part of the initial liquidity that's going to go on the platform is going to come from the team, but we evaluated it's going to be minimal. But however, what's going to happen is we can definitely leverage these what we call integration partners because they have a user base. And I think one of them is BitLayer. We have BitLayer, we have Bitfinity. So these are partners that have a user base, people ready and willing to actually start trading within the platform. And with these into consideration, it amounts to a very large, part of their user base. So that's a positive, I would say, for BetBTC as a start.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned people are kind of scared to, not kind of, people are hesitant to click on links and all that sort of stuff. Yet it's really something where you're going to have to figure that out in some sort of way, right? Because you want people to be able to create a prediction market on something they see happening on X and share it on X, right? To get people actively involved in that. Do you have any? What's the killer app that's going to happen and people will feel comfortable?
So there's no final solution now. If you guys do have any recommendation or thoughts, they're absolutely welcomed. So we do need to find a way around, this entire click on link thing. Maybe we're gonna have to find a different way. But what's gonna happen is that our version of Blinks is gonna come for sure. How it's gonna come, we're still figuring out. We're gonna make sure we're not scaring people away from the platform, right?
Yeah, it'd be interesting if you could open up betting markets. So I just keep thinking specifically like Bitcoin betting markets or kind of cultural Bitcoin betting markets, things like. But then there's also again the thing of manipulation. But Bitcoin is unique where you have a whole entire kind of miner industry that is predominantly on Bitcoin, and you have this kind of the longest culture that exists in the industry that's now been around for 15 or so years, and there's a giant spectrum of personalities that exist on it, and all kinds of different products now in terms of like L2s and meta protocols, and you could bet on things like funding, I would say, right? So like if I were to this is probably like one of the first ones that I opened up just for fun, is like how much venture capital will be raised on Bitcoin, right, in 2025. Something that's kind of simple, new, and novel, and really tough to manipulate. Because if you're a VC, I don't think I mean, maybe if you're a VC, right? If it was at like, if the over under was 100 million and it was at 98 million, the VC goes and throws 3 million down on the bet and then goes and raises $2 million, right? I guess that could be manipulated in that way. But
yeah, no, you're actually right. So I probably don't want to spoil like the markets that are going to come, but we do have markets specific to like Bitcoin, Solana, just so that we can address markets that people want within each community. And of course, the Bitcoin community is a highly engaged community, and we all know so there's a lot of liquidity with Bitcoin, right? Projects and things are being built, and people just have whether it's Bitcoin or just Bitcoin assets on the sideline, just waiting maybe to use it for something, right? So Bitcoin is definitely a market we're not neglecting at all. It's actually one of our priorities, since we're also building on Bitcoin essentially. So it is, but we're kind of excited to show the markets. We should be launching pretty soon, so you'll be able to see the markets pretty soon.
Since you're open to ideas, and Jake and I love ideas about business and stuff, one other idea you could do, and actually now that I think about links, it's not that big a deal, in that people follow people. If Jake posts a link, I'm probably going to be okay with it, right? I haven't connected my wallet. I'll click on the, I think people generally work that way. But one thing you could do possibly is the person who creates the bet, right, get some sort of reward or heightened reward. Might be interesting. I'm just thinking like yesterday or the day before, Thread guy bought a bunch of
I saw this bet just opened up.
so he bought a bunch of these Trump NFTs, right? So that he gets invited to the Trump dinner, which happens in the first part of September. And a bet opens up, will Thread guy interview Trump? And you're like, well, no, I'd say no, right? But then it turns out the bet is like, he just has to ask him one question and get a response. So then it's like, oh, well, that could totally happen. Because you go to these dinners, everybody gets to shake hands, everybody gets to ask one question, or, so then that could totally happen. And if Thread guy himself would set up the bet where he gets the reward of the total, prize or something, then he's willing to promote it. He's willing to push it, if you know what I'm saying.
100%. And maybe I should have said this earlier.
Did we lose him?
I think we lost him for a second. Wait for him to come back. Wait for him to come back.
Can you hear me?
Yep. There you go.
Sorry.
Did you get a phone call?
Yeah, exactly. I'm on my phone. So I probably should have said this earlier, but I'll probably send it to you guys. But we do have like a website available. It's called study.betbtc.win, and on that website, what we have is the entire the entire structure of the project. So now that you're mentioning rewards, we do have rewards for people who are creating their market, right? Because we were thinking, like you said, how do we incentivize people to create their own markets? And especially we're in a influencer-led market. So the more influencers create markets or share your project, that's how it's also going to do well. So we've thought about putting a certain reward percentage of the total volume in that market. It goes directly to the person who created the market when it resolves. So it's a great point you brought up. I just forgot to mention it.
Awesome.
So I pulled up here on the live stream. The Will Thread guy interview Trump before October. There's $19,000 bet on this. He has a 13% chance. Just the funny side story of this is that it was if you buy 25 of these cards at $100 a piece, then you get a chance to have dinner with him. It was a dinner, or was it?
It's like he puts on one of these events, right?
Yeah, so you get to you have a chance to go to the dinner, and turns out his odds of winning are like less than 1%. So dude, homie just burned a ton of money.
I mean, you say a manipulation. I mean, this is like these sort of markets are completely manipulated, right? I mean, in that, Thread guy could take the other side, which is the no side, and then just not ask a question, right? I mean, it's like, so there's nothing yet. I mean, that's part of it that makes it kind of fun and interesting and layered. It's like, oh, the people actually who are part of the bet can actually like manipulate these odds and stuff. And that would be like when we're talking about the NFT versus NFT thing, you could totally manipulate that, right? This totally happens. So, but I think the beauty of the blockchain here is that it's transparent about what's happening. You can see who's betting and stuff. And so this is one of the use cases where blockchains just do it way better, no doubt.
Yeah, look, it's so here on you can see the leaderboard here. So for all time, there's the top two people who've profited over $1 million. One person's profited 2.3, and second place 1.4. But these two individuals have also bet $255 million and $115 million.
Oh my God, bro.
To win that. So that R&R is the spread's quite bad. But I mean, Chris and I are born and raised in Las Vegas, and we've worked in the industry for quite a long time. And I've had a handful of professional handicappers on my podcast before. And if you're a professional, your handicap is like 54% if you're like the best, right? So you're winning 54% of the time if you're like the absolute best. So, from a winnings perspective, this looks about right? He's betting 255 million to win 2.5. That's 1%. So right now you're saying the handicap of a prediction market right now is even worse than what it is of betting in Vegas on sports. I'm sure people will probably figure out the way, but then that also means, right, if the best handicapper on Polymarket is a 1% or 51% winning percentage, is it really manipulated? Right, because that would show up, wouldn't it? Oh, yeah, unless you have it on different accounts, I guess.
But even that, yeah, it would totally show up, man. Yeah.
So maybe the manipulation is actually too overblown because the market's more efficient. Maybe the bonding market is what helps. Kind of get rid of that.
Yeah. So on Polymarket, it might be difficult to do manipulation just because of volume on different markets. You would need a substantial size in bet in order to manipulate it. But on smaller market, like niche markets, it's definitely an issue. It's just the same, I say, would be with any meme coin. So, so there are manipulation for sure that could happen. And like you said, fortunately, the blockchain is transparent, so we could try and prevent that as much as possible, but we cannot totally erase it.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if, like the Vegas sports book will end up getting into prediction markets at some point in time. I remember back in so I got in the space in 2016, and that was like a year or two after Augur had been made. And the whole issue with Augur, I'm sure you remember as well, Good, was that there was a huge regulatory concern. I think that's why they ultimately ended up shutting it down, was that they thought the US would never allow this thing to happen, and that there were a lot of considerations. Do you know what's changed since then? Even when I saw Polymarket pop up in 2020, I was still confused how this was, even though a few years years before that, it was like such a big regulatory issue.
I think it's mainly, I'm probably speculating here. It's probably the backers behind Polymarket. Like we're talking about, people who have, long reach within regulations, regulatory frameworks. So Peter Thiel and all these, institutions, and Polymarket has been talked about in media, right? So there's a lot of things that helps the platform just, be more and more successful.
How do you look at it when you guys were thinking about doing this? It would concern me, right? So it probably concerns you too. Like, how were you like, okay, well, let's go for it anyway, even though there may be some, regulatory risk where we get a letter, I don't know, OpenSea got today, right? How do you make that call?
It's a good question because we're still figuring out, right? We do have we do get counsel from different lawyers, people who are aware of different compliance and regulation. And I think one of the key things here is essentially where the platform will be operating, where the platform would be incorporated, and things like that. So it's still a work in process. I can't really say much about it right now, but yeah, it's definitely it's a major issue. So we're figuring out as we go too.
Awesome. And then it's kind of the final component here, and for all the speculators in the crowd, is there going to be a token to this thing? How are you funding the whole project?
100%. So currently, it's mostly team. Like, it's funded by the team. There's a lot of people. So there's two co-founders, myself, my co-founder, and we have a couple engineers that are also into the vision, fortunately for us. So we're all together in this project. And within the funding, we did receive some interest from different investors that would like to take part in the project. So that's going to help facilitate a lot. And there is going to be a token associated with it. So there's going to be a Rune token. And regarding the Rune token, we want to make it a utility token, right? So it's not just something that we're going to be giving to our holders. We want to attach value to the Rune tokens by providing utility that's also attached, like the BetBTC platform and anything that we're going to build later on with the platform. So we do have a token. Right now, it's to be determined when we're going to actually launch the token, but we're finalizing the final steps of the tokenomics, the, let's say, fundraising amount, and all everything related to financials.
Are you, one question there, are you looking to token holders to get rewarded as a percentage of like earnings from the platform? Is that an idea for you?
It's definitely on the table. I know for certain places in the world it might be difficult because of it. It's actually on the table, revenue sharing, because then we have
it's difficult from a regulatory environment, but you're already pressing the regulations, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
bro, fuck them. Seriously, dude.
Yes, I'm actually into that mindset.
Letter anyway, you might as well fucking do it where people are like truly rewarded. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. I agree 100%. And we're taking, that's definitely on the table. We're looking at there's different models, right? I was looking at Rollbit the other day, and I think people who hold Rollbit have certain advantages on their platform, like maybe reduced fees or increased rewards, something like that. But it's definitely, we want to offer like real value to the holders.
Oh yeah, if you have any ideas or you ever want to shoot some tokenomic ideas, Adam and I and Chris talk through these ideas literally all fucking day, every day. What actually cool. what utility actually means, because where we currently sit today in the crypto industry, the reason, at least this is my speculation, the reason for the proliferation of memes is that the last cycle, when all these NFTs and utility tokens of DeFi promised all of these, reward mechanisms and different types of things that you could do with it, 99% of them largely failed. And so now there's a lack of utility ideas that exist in the industry, and it has to be completely kind of reimagined. And until the time, that's why these people just said, hey, we're just going to trade meme coins because at least there's no promises here and you know what you're getting. And everyone was kind of let down over the past few years.
Yep, 100%. So the, people are often attached like promises, and when promises are not being kept, they end up being deceived. And I think it happened to almost all of us, right, at one point within a certain project. It does happen a lot. So so what you just said is spot on. Why people are actually attracted to meme coins. It's easy to use. You want to buy, you buy it. If it increases in price, you buy it, you sell it, you make a profit. If you lose it, well, at least there were no promises. So yeah, I understand that. That's true.
Now, is there any intention, maybe some point here in the future to bring this project on chain to Bitcoin layer 1? As we know right now, it's largely impossible until, you get some further upgrades or some further innovations are created. So most of the builders have chosen to, basically build on a side chain or build out a side chain or build out some sort of execution environment in lieu of waiting for that to happen to come back on chain.
Yes, 100%. So our initial thought was definitely to have something that's Bitcoin native in terms of building on Bitcoin. We're just looking at the entire experience and we're noticing maybe it's going to be a lot more difficult. It might have taken more time for us to deliver it. And also we weren't sure how the user experience would have been. And I do know, I'm aware of maybe one or two other prediction market that are starting or has started on Bitcoin already. And we're evaluating how the experience has been. And we decided maybe right now, as of now, our way of doing it would be optimal. And eventually, if we do have some upgrade on Bitcoin or there are more tools, then we could definitely leverage that and directly go on chain.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to go about it, is to just basically build in preparation for whenever that day happens. This also happens largely in the traditional world as well, when industries are illegal or on the fringe, kind of this gray area. You just basically prepare for it so that when that day does come and the legalization happens, you're the first to jump. I mean, look at a lot of these Bitcoin ETFs. One of the more popular ones is not BlackRock, was called Bitwise, which had basically been building out an ETF for the last 6 or 7 years, even as it kept getting denied. And once it was legalized, now they're just profiting insane amounts and having a large amount of success because they were ready for when that does happen. That's how we kind of Emblem approaches things kind of as well. One final question I do have here. Sorry to cut you off. On the BetBTC account, it says that it's powered by something called Orange or Originals, and then you go to the Twitter account. It says it's an RWI in Bitcoin. What is this, or what's the relationship?
The relationship. So the relationship essentially, like earlier I said, we were two co-founders, and there's a team of devs. Essentially, Originals is like this group of dev with my co-founder who built a previous project leveraging RWA. He wanted to build something on RWA. So Originals, it's more of like let's say the brand, the overarching brand, and then BetBTC is kind of like one of the products launched by Originals.
Got it. So it would be like the labs on Ethereum.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It
would be like the labs. Exactly. So it's Originals, and then there's BetBTC.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Adam, you have any other questions?
I love it's so crazy. We've been talking about gambling so much over the last month. My personal belief, it's like the first real, like, best use case other than money for crypto. It's the one that works for a lot of reasons, but minimizing trust, it's the number one reason why blockchains work. And I appreciate you leaning into it. Really cool. And we'll definitely track what kind of target niche you go after. It'll be exciting to watch what you do. So good luck to you, man.
Thanks. Appreciate you guys. I would like to exchange more ideas off the platform. So thanks for having me today.
Yeah, man. Always feel free to reach out. And actually, I've been kind of waiting for, a killer app to pop out for me to dive into the world of ICP. And this will probably give me, enough interest to go and finally explore what's actually going on over there. So yeah, really best of wishes to you guys. You guys are crushing it. And for those that are new to the show, Adam, myself, and Chris, we work at Emblem Vault, the leading cross-chain NFT protocol in the industry. We host the show Tuesday through Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. If you enjoyed the show, please follow the Emblem account. Just right there as the host. Just go and hit follow so you can see all the cool things that we're going to be unveiling later this year. Also give Good a follow, and then you go to his account and follow BetBTC if you're ready for some prediction markets. We're going to be back tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time with our monthly town hall, the Emblem Town Hall, where we reveal what is happening, what happened this month, and then what are our plans moving forward and all of the cool updates. It was a very, very big month for Emblem. And actually, we had a community member who just built an Emblem Dune dashboards now where you can see all of the Emblem stats. Over $150 million traded in Emblem's history. Crazy stat here. Emblem has minted 75 millionaires since its creation. Wasn't that, dude? That's a crazy stat.
Bro, I'm telling you, when I saw that, I was like, God damn. It's like pumped up on steroids, bro. It's like there is no, I mean, it's incredible. But obviously, there's a reason why, Pepe, and the guys on Counterparty love Emblem, man. It's, bro, we're buying private islands up in here for these guys, bro. It's crazy.
75 millionaires since 2020. That's 1 million in profits. 17,000 traders, and the top trader in Emblem, $9.3 million in profit. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. So more of that coming tomorrow. Good. Again, appreciate you, dude. Glad to have you back in the space. We got along very well last year when you're building out some of your other projects, and hey, you took the time off and reassessed, and now you're back. So, dude, props to you. Excited for it, and appreciate everyone for joining the show. We'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy your Wednesday. Be safe out there. And man, the SEC sucks.
See you guys tomorrow.